Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, well, thank you, Sean, once again. I don't know if folks know this. I'm always giving the ballad of Sean. He's been posting a lot online lately, and it's he's doing well. But there's another Sean today that we're going to introduce to you guys, a game designer that was turned on to me by Ryan Heilman. If anybody remembers the podcast with Ryan and Herman, you mean the hour and 45 one? Yeah, that's the one. But Sean Druelinger, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Mitch. Good to be here.
Yeah. I mean, where else are you going to be on a Friday night?
Probably
Right.
looking up, stuff on Discord to listen to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's where else? But we love getting game designers in with us and to talk about it. And when Sean and I were emailing, he goes, "Well, are you familiar with my work?" And I think so. And then I realized, dude, I played a lot of your games.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So give us your wargaming CV if you could, sir.
My bona fides or my history. But how far do you want to go back? I mean, so.
Well, I mean, it's the Earth cooled, and then right after that.
Yeah, there was the primordial ooze and all that stuff. Anyway, started my wargaming career started kind of accidentally. Probably around 1980. I think it was like 12 or something like that, or 15. And my mother actually was looking to find something for me to do. She found a Dungeons and Dragons club at the Aberdeen Proving Ground Army base where we were living outside of. And I was every other week they would do Dungeons and Dragons, and every other week they would do wargaming. So I enjoyed the D&D stuff. Showed up accidentally on a war game day that they were playing because they were much older guys than I was. I was the youngest, and they were playing. It was a little sad that there was no D&D. They invited me to play a war game, and my first war game I learned how to play was Squad Leader.
And you became a wargamer after that.
I did. I never looked back. I still like the D&D stuff. But I don't get to play today. But it's I like that it's being played. But wargaming is my jam. So started off with the squad level tactical games, and kind of worked up to operational item. A lot of all the war Avalon Hill pieces that were out there at the time. Longest Day, Russian Campaign, War at Sea, anything basically that Avalon Hill put out. Then, there were some SPI games and that we put. I don't remember too much of those because we didn't have a lot of them, but a lot of Avalon Hill guys that play tested and designed games were members of that club. So I got to see the I got to see the early beginnings of Up Front. I got to play test Bonsai, the one of the expansions. That was fun. So a lot of exposure to that, and those guys were merciless to me. I mean, they would just beat the crap out of me. But it wasn't about winning for me. It was about just the experience, and so I enjoyed it. And so continue on to this day.
Wow.
I have way too many games.
And I'll tell you what I think is really odd. Other than the fact that you brilliantly didn't mention how your mom was just trying to get rid of you, and she didn't drop you off at a firehouse. So that
She'd slow the car down, and I would jump out. So anyway,
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, hey, good friends slow down at least. So
right?
a lot of people go and they play squad leader,
Yep.
and for decades they play nothing else.
Yeah,
You
it's like
you
a
didn't do
lifestyle
that.
game. Well, so I still I played Squad Leader before all the ridiculous expansions came out of it. So there was Squad Leader, enjoyed that. Then Cross of Iron came out where they upgraded the armor rules and things like that. So I said, okay, this is still good, still good. Crescendo Doom came out. I'm still into it. I can still afford it. And then they said, well, throw all that stuff away and let's do GI Anvil of Victory. And then Anvil of Victory came out and introduced all the half squad stuff. Bought into that. And then they said, throw all that stuff away. We're going to redo it completely and put out Advanced Squad Leader. And I didn't buy any of that stuff because I kind of had enough. And so I went back to it later, several years later and started buying it. But um, it wasn't quite a lifestyle game at that point yet for everybody. At least didn't get the reputation for it, in my opinion, until much later.
I went and did a podcast many years ago at a winter offensive,
Yeah,
and I'm assuming you and I are actually probably around the same age. And I
58,
was,
58.
yeah, I mean, right around the same age. I was one of the young guys there, and I remember talking to Perry from MMP, and I'm
Yep,
like, there's one thing I can tell you for sure. In 20 years, most of us will be gone. Where's the young people coming into this game? And it's so important. And well, and he's a businessman, right?
yep.
Well, these guys still play. Okay. I mean, I can't fault him. Uh, I just find it interesting that people still play that game like obsessively. Um, I have all of these starter kits. I got to be honest with you, mostly unpunched. Don't tell
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah. I won't. No, secret save. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the starter kits because the rules are more consumable. You know, so it's laid out well. I do own like the pocket guide, but you could probably knock somebody out with the pocket guide.
So
Um,
it sounds like you and I have the same collection. I have the pocket guide as well.
yeah, the
Yeah.
chapter H is probably worth any war game designers you know needs are probably in that book if you're going to do anything tactical. Just because there's so much research done on every vehicle that participated. You know, quantity and likelihood, rarity. Armament.
Hmm.
Backstory. The developer's girlfriend's name. All those kind of things.
I actually know a guy, Sergeant Garvin. He's in the game,
Yeah.
and it's Dave Garvin, one of our writers,
Oh
and
wow.
he's dabbled with other games. To
Hmm.
this day, one of our most hit stories on the website is storage solutions for Squad Leader.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is believe it or not, that is high interest for a lot of people. A lot of people just go with the what is it the Plano boxes for storage,
yeah.
and I've seen all kinds of different things over the years, customized cardboard, boxes, things like that. Um,
I was just at the Nova Open, and it's mostly fantasy. But in the Warhammer room, and I think it was Age of Sigmar. No, it was in the Warhammer room. They have
yeah.
these little carts, these foldable carts that they walk around with.
Oh yeah.
It's 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 crazy. But then again, we have a rule: we don't talk about that game. It's the game that should not be nailed, spoken about. It should be nailed to something. But you started out with a squad level World War II game,
Yep.
and looking at your designs, it seems like that's your jam. I definitely want you to talk. We're going to get to your most recent stuff, which is Point Blank, but I've played Nations of War. Um, how did that come about, and kind of what was your design process there?
Well, I didn't design Nations at War. I developed the later versions of it. So I'll tell you the story. So um, I enjoyed the World at War stuff by Lock and Load when um, oh
Mark
god,
was there.
Mark Walker owned it,
Yeah.
right? And so he came out with White Star Rising, and I really, really dug it. And I had gotten in contact with him and said, "Look, I'd like to do an East Front version of this." I said, "Can I, you know, I'll put together scenarios, some test counters, things like that, and I'll meet you at the WBC, and we'll go through it." So um, I put it together. Just I had all my additional ideas that I wanted to do it because it was kind of a real basic game, and I wanted to add some character to it by adding national characteristics of units and things like that. I wanted to put a little more sophisticated air things. All those ideas got to go into Stalin's Triumph. So he liked the scenario. Said, "Sure, go for it." So I started working on development of it, and um, uh, but the core game is Mark's.
Yeah.
Um, and so as we were designing it, or as I was designing it, um, the company got bought by Dave Heath,
Mm-hmm.
but Mark never told me that. So,
Huh.
I didn't hear from him for a while, and then I got all of a sudden I started getting emails and stuff and asking me questions about Stalin's Triumph, and which was the game I was working on. And so I thought it was going forward, and I thought I was next in line because I know he was a small company, and he was not putting out you know multiple games at once. And then I didn't hear from him for a while, and then out of the blue, I got a call from or an email from David Heath. He's like, "Have you been working on the Nations of War stuff?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I found your name in a contact. Mark Walker is no longer with Lock and Load. And he went and started his own company, Flying Pigs." Um, and shout out to all the old school tactical stuff that company's putting out because that stuff's
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's good games right there. And Shane did the art on he's the developer of that game, designer of that game. He did all the art for Point Blank. Anyway, I'll get to that in a little while.
Mm.
So David then kind of we hit it off. We talked for a couple hours on the phone, and then he said, "How would you like to lead the entire Nations at War series? Because I need someone to do that." And I wasn't going to turn that down, so I said, "Sure." And it was kind of new territory for me because I never took over a series, and I was working on sort of my, you know, the Stalin's Triumph game, and so he wanted a redesign of all of them, not just Stalin's Triumph. So we had to I rewrote the rules. We rewrote all the modules. We combined them. We added some new rules like some of the Overwatch rules and the acquisition rules for armor and just all kinds of stuff. And we released all of the games together, and that was a challenge. It was interesting, and we stumbled a little bit on it, but we corrected it. So we had some counter misprints and things like that, and we had some rules errata that we had to go change. So we cleaned all that up and put together an upgrade kit, and the upgrade kit went out I think fairly cheap to everybody. And now if you buy just any one of those games, you'll get all of it in the game. So it's all in there, and it's cleaned up, and it's all clean now.
I think I have a copy of one of them, but I got too many games. I'm pointing to
Mhm.
my left. I'm sure everybody here can see it. But if it was digitized.
Yeah, so that came about also, sort of started shortly after the games got printed. Um, it was with a company, a software company out I want to say in Czechoslovakia or something like that, and then they completely bailed on the project, and so now it's actually being redone by the guy who's doing the lock and load tactical digital stuff.
which
So
are
yeah,
I have almost all of those.
yeah, yeah. So that's all coming out, and should be. I don't know what the production schedule is on that because it's not like a team of developers, but it's a single developer. But I've seen a lot of the prototypes or beta copies of it and played it, and it looks good. So I don't know when he's going to finish it, but it's in the works as far as I know. So
So
if you own
as
a copy of it already, yeah, if you own a copy of it already, I think you don't have to buy the new one. You'll just get the upgrade if you already
so
own the game.
question I've been dying to ask,
Sure.
actually, since I started doing my research. I've worked with like Dave shoot, the guy that does Undaunted, Dave
Oh, D
Thompson.
Thompson.
Yeah, and I play tested his games that have been ported over. And it was great talking to the developer on that one because you know, he's a fan of the games actually. Um, but like, well, what does Dave think? And didn't really get a good answer. I'm not bagging on you, Dave. David, I know how you are about that. That how much of the design as it gets digitized do you still have to do, or this guy just gets it?
So, well, I can't speak to other games, but the game, the Nations at War stuff, I didn't have to do any of the digital work or coding or any of the work with the tables. It was all they had that already done, and I may have had to provide some of the spreadsheets that we used for recording the values of the vehicles and stuff, but they may have, but those spreadsheets weren't designed for a coder to go in. It was designed for a paper map a developer to go and track their numbers and track progress and stuff. So um, I didn't have to do anything but just play test and kind of try to break the game, which is always fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you need more play testers, I can round you up some. But
Oh, okay,
uh,
that's awesome.
you kind of look at, like, I speak to gamers of all sorts of backgrounds. And there's four types of us: the RPG, computer, miniatures, and board games. I do three of the four. Um, yeah, I don't do RPGs. Most people know that. I actually can listen to the only time I play an RPG right
Hmm.
here, World War II one, believe it or not. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah, it was like, wow, it's a little different. Um, but they're different types of people. Like seeing Ryan at a miniatures convention back in July, I'm like, do you feel out of place? It was him and Wes, and I'm sure you know Wes too. And he's like, yeah, it's a little different. And do you realize that you get like the average player? Is it somebody that also plays the board game, or are you pulling new people in that go out and try the board game? I know it's near impossible to tell, but is
Well,
there anything that you've been able to kind of gather?
I enjoy gaming in general. So if I'm presented with a miniatures game and it doesn't really take me too long to figure it out because they're fairly simple in concept. So I'll play a miniatures game. I don't play many RPG games that much. Uh, I do play computer games, but I can't fit 10 hours of my day into something like you know Smolensk 41 or something like that from or Kursk 43 from
John
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 Tiller
Taylor,
games.
yeah.
Yeah, well, But I like those games, and I own the squad level games, and I own the Panzer ones, and I own like some of the Panzer campaigns one. The Napoleon and American Civil War stuff is a little. It's not too intuitive from a moving stuff around, and it's a lot of attrition in those games,
Yeah.
in all of the games. And so I was like, okay, I killed two guys. All right, well, how many freaking times? How many turns am I going to spend popping off, 5, 6 guys at a time, in an attack? Or should I just, or excuse me, or should I just go, balls to the wall and just rush everybody up there just to get the thing over with, see what happens? Um, so I play a lot of those. I like um, some of the simpler ones, like was it Victory and Valor is a nice simple one.
Yeah, we had those guys on not too long ago.
Yeah, I like
Fun
those
little
games.
game.
Yeah, I like Second Front, which is like it's more like Squad Leader, but like if you're playing Minecraft with Start, I think it's like Minecraft's Squad Leader, but it's the
Wi-
Squad Leader rules because they're
Let me tell
all
you
the
something.
what's that?
I got I got hours in that damn thing, and it's not an easy game to play well because
Mm-mm.
anytime you get shot, great, I'm disrupted. My guy's
Yeah,
just going to start running away. It's
yep.
and it's not because the AI is bad. It's just because
Mhm.
it's a really, hey, you get shot at, you're not going to keep going. You're going to go to
Mhm.
ground. It's a frustrating game that I can't stop playing.
Yeah, it's like if you take a screenshot and I look at it, I'm like, man, it's a lot of exclamation marks on my on the map.
Yeah, I know. It's such a fun little game. And even the John Tiller games, which is now WDS, and we
Yep,
had those guys on too. Um, tell you what I like about those games is you could save it at any time,
yep,
and like most of these games. And I think if you had to sit there and play like Hearts of Iron, I know a lot of guys that play that game. I can't sit there for that many hours. Um,
no, no, I agree. I like playing over email. I got to do a lot of Vassal stuff. I do a lot of point blank with it on Vassal.
mhm.
Um, and I like the emailing turns and things like that. So, hey, I got 10 minutes. I can go do a turn, send it off, and then get the next turn next day or something. So
Yeah, I
that
actually
was,
am in a tournament now for Marine Corps University
oh, nice.
on these games that they created, and they got 700 people to sign up and get accounts, but like 350 actually signed up to actually play in the tournament.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
yeah,
huge.
I was telling those like that's good because usually I would say you would get a third, but they got almost half. But, it's, these are Marines, you can order them to do shit, I guess, right? Um, yeah, it just seems like it. Like, all of a sudden, it was at 187, they extended it a day, and, now it's at, like, I think 366, but I did my first moves, and, it's all modern stuff done by the, Code Wizards. They do a ton of handheld games,
Yeah,
like tablet
when you
games,
say
like
moderns, are you talking like 1985 moderns, or are you talking, today's moderns?
it's today's. It's
Yeah,
a Marine Corps battalion against Red Battalion, and I'm just something. I'm just going to go straight ahead using Napoleonic tactics. It may work because, like yourself, I want to break the game. Plus, I sat down with the guys that did the game, so
yeah,
don't tell anybody. I think I may be cheating by understanding kind of how the algorithm computes hits, but no one's going to listen to this, so I'm not really worried about it. But it's somebody's going to come and throw this in my face. So yeah, that's it. My secret's out. So you mentioned Point Blank. It's your most recent, and looking at the game, it is a card based squad game. I got to be honest, don't have it. I looked through the rules. It looks interesting. how did that game go from, I think this is a good idea to now, I think you have 2 of them now, right? Correct?
Well,
Uh,
Point Blank is out. It's out of print, but I'm sure you could probably pick up a copy somewhere. We are looking to reprint it, so that's always a good sign.
yeah.
And well, I did before I talk about Point Blank. I guess I just want to mention some other stuff that Dave threw into my yard to go do, which was the solo system for Lock and Load Tactical.
Mhm.
So he bought the rights to or license from Academy Games from their and I think it may have been John Butterfield or who did the solo system for
Mhm.
Academy Games, but it was confined to the 10 scenarios that came to that game. So he liked the card draw, and then you kind of progress down the card, and then you pick you get to an order, and then you order your troops. So he said, hey, I bought this. I want you to go and take it, and just it'll be easy. You just take the cards and just kind of change them up a little bit, and it'll be fine. And I wanted to work with all 400 plus scenarios of Lock and Load Tactical. And like a dumbass, I said, well, sure, that's no problem. I can do that. And so uh, it ended up being a challenge. The card draw was okay because you could flip the card and it was easy enough to get to an order and then determine which unit. But then at that point, that's where the game separated. So then I had to go through and design a whole AI on paper through flowcharts and things like that to um, to power the AI to do things, but not like your typical AI where you flip a card and they do whatever's on the card. It was what the situation is on the ground. Depending on what that is, they would react to it. But so anyway, I went through all that. It was a pretty successful game, and I did another version of it of the flowcharts and added things like a little more AI into transporting troops and how to manage offboard artillery, and there was all kinds of fun items in there. So that came around, and then I really had I love the game up front, and I I was thinking, there's really no predecessor to it. You could say maybe Combat Commander, but even then it was using components on a map and it was card driven. There's a lot of things in it.
Mhm.
I like that game. I like Chad's game a lot. But I liked Upfront a lot as also, and I wanted a game to that had that same feel, and I didn't see a big market share of it. I mean, there's tons of squad based war games out there, Hex Encounter and stuff like that. So if you're gonna do, if you're gonna compete in that market, you're competing with like 6, 7, 8 other games.
Oh, yeah.
I thought up Point Blank. It's not an upfront clone. There's a lot of I pay homage to that game a lot in my rule set, but it's not upfront in any stretch. So I pitched it to Dave. I met him at Origins in 2017, and I had a prototype, and we played it in an abandoned ballroom in the hotel we were staying at. And I don't know if you ever met Dave Heath. He's got he lives in Colorado, but he's from Staten Island, New York, and he has. I mean, you can tell he's got the heavy New York accent.
Yeah, but he's
So
from Staten Island. That's, to me, growing up in New York
yeah,
City, that's kinda Jersey, but I won't tell
yeah.
him that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll say, hey, the guy at No Dice, No Glory said it's like Jersey.
Yeah, we know that guy, he's an asshole. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, well, he has the heavy, I guess, accent. So we play the game, and he's like, "Well, I don't know if it's for me or whatever. I'm gonna, you know, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. And so I was kind of felt a little bad and kind of defeated. So we went to the Origins um, part where they put all the wargaming groups and stuff that kind of banished you out into like a warehouse area of the
Yeah,
convention.
not very welcoming.
Yeah, exactly. And I got together a couple guys to play it from the Ohio Wargamers group, and they played it and they were having a blast and they were loving it. And so I kind of got it, kind of breathed new life into it. And they're saying, yeah, this is gonna be great. Lock and Load's gonna put this out. And I looked at Dave and he's like, well, I guess I got to put it out now. So that was sort of how I got the green light to go develop it. And then it went through several iterations of rule thing. I played every time I played tested, I was learning new stuff, and I played it with some of the guys that I grew up playing at the Aberdeen Wargamers Club, and they were just looking to just annihilate me with any design issue or whatever. And they actually gave me some good helpful tips and stuff. So we put it out, and we put it out on Kickstarter, and it did pretty well. And it came out in 2022, I believe, October. So that it started shipping, I think, in the October or November timeframe, and then 23 was a good year for it, and we sold out, and it's done well all across the United States and in Europe, um, and some Australia and Canada, things like that. So it's done well. But the game is, it uses just so for the folks that don't know anything about it, the game pieces are cards. There's squad level units that are poker sized cards. There's individual AFVs. Those are poker sized cards. There are leaders, which are not poker sized. They're mini cards, and then there's support weapons, which are also mini cards, and they accompany the squad. Each unit represents a squad, and there's squads that represent half squads. So the basic breakdown is it's a little like Lock and Load Tactical, where if you get a hit, you're shaking. If you get a hit again when you're shaking, you turn into a half squad, and then you go down. And if you're half squad and you're shaking, you get hit again, then you're eliminated. There's also weapon teams cards too. So there's machine gun teams, and they represent their own cards. So those are the
You know,
pieces. Go ahead.
no. From reading the rules, it is different, and there's a there's a ton of tactical games on there. And the Mike Denson was actually on our last podcast. He does
Yeah, last 100 yards.
last 100 yards, and he had an interesting story how he created that, but it is different than every other game that is out there. And it seems like, squad leader, to me, that was the first real squad ultra tactical system, because Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader were a little bit, you platoons at that time. But
Yep.
it's interesting how a lot of designers have gone on and, you know, I always tell people this. Every game that you design has a little squad leader in it because it was your first game.
Yep.
And pulling in stuff from other games, but I'm starting to see with this there are some really good unique designs out there. I think it's really the hobby itself. How many folks play it like it? Because you'll never get a squad leader player to tell you any other squad based game is any good. It's like playing Napoleonics rules and miniatures. First one
Yeah.
you learn is the only one you ever learn. And
Yeah.
to me, it is different. I dig the cards. Um, I think that is great because it makes the tableau that much. It looks nice. If you guys go and look at the Board Game Geek, the pictures that they have there, and I am scrolling through it now. I like kind of how that flows, and it also looks like the game. The maps are paper, correct? And there's
Yeah.
different maps.
So yeah. So So initially, I didn't want to have a map at all because I was thinking up front,
Yeah.
and you can play the game without the map because in the game you get a set of counters that you can use to manage your columns and rows. We
Hmm.
call them sectors and areas. So, um, if you're but what I found out is I had a hard time trying to explain the rules. It was easy for me because I was, the concept
You
of upfront.
designed it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that too. The concept of upfront though was ever present, so it just made sense to me. You didn't need a map board. But there are a lot of people out there. I felt that if I explained it to them, they could play, but that's not how I wanted people to learn the game. I wanted people to learn the game from reading the rules and not from having to watch a video or having to sit with the designers and have the designer teach you how to play. And I've heard a lot of designers say, well, if you just give me 5-10 minutes, I can explain it to you and you can get going on it. And I didn't want to do that because I can't if we have over 1,000 copies out there. It's like, it can't be everywhere, and I want people to enjoy the game.
So
You
we
invest.
can't shrink you down and put you in every box.
No, but honestly
Ah,
though, I mean, if you do want to watch videos, there's a butt ton of them out there with people who go through and play either solo. I've done some playthroughs and things like that. Zilla Blitz did a really nice job on a playthrough, um, and if you're familiar with his podcast,
hmm.
there's a lot of support from all of the podcasters out there to help you learn the game. But when I first designed it, I didn't know that it was going to be looked at as much as it was. So I wanted it to be, I wanted someone to sit there and say, yeah, okay, I can get through the rules and we can get through a game. So that was the design. So when I was thinking the map, I'm like, I don't know a good way to explain it. I said, let's use a map, and we put out a paper grid, and it looks nice on the table. And the funny thing is when the game was first initially designed by Dave, Dave wanted to use tarot cards
Oh,
with,
because they're
uh,
so popular and easy to get
yeah,
protectors
exactly,
for. Yeah.
yeah. So that's what he wanted to do. So he made a whole set of these cards at tarot size. And I was playing the game and trying to play the game, and I'm like, "Good grief, Dave!" I said, "We're gonna need a gym floor to play this game." I said, "It's just too big. We have to shrink it down." So we shrunk it down, and then he wanted to make all the cards fit in one sector. Have all the room, and that and a game map that size is great on a huge convention table, but this is not. That wasn't the goal. So we made the game could fit on a 3-foot table and 3 by 4. So, but in the new game, there's an expansion coming out. It's not out yet, called Winter Victory, and in Winter Victory, included with the game, are hard-mounted tiles that you can use to create your map board because the game depending on the scenario you play, it doesn't use all of the spaces on the map board. So
Hmm.
you could make a smaller game. So like the very first scenario, I think uses just 3 areas, um, and some others you don't use some of the back rows. So you can customize your map board with these tiles, but it's going to come with that as part of the game, and I think uh, that'll be a really nice add to people who want to not have to unfold the map on and play on a 3 by 4 table.
You bring up something interesting. So I get asked to play test a lot. I don't know why. And I play tested this guy's game, and we were there for hours. And by turn 2 or 3, if I am not playing this game without you, there's a
Yep.
problem.
Yeah.
And I just was nothing was intuitive. But when the creator was explaining it, it was almost like, well, this makes sense to me. I don't know why you're not getting it. And I'm like, yeah, we can't shrink you down and put you in every box.
Exactly.
And when I play test and somebody goes, can you get people to play test this for me? I purposely will set up a play test session and say, I got to go take a phone call and I'll watch them play it.
Hmm.
Here are the rules. Just start without me, because that is important. Because how many games do people own and they're like, I'll never get these rules down.
Yeah.
And games are just, as we see now, they go by the thick rule book. Love Bruce Maxwell. His game um, came out. His remake of got the name of it already. Aaron Armor. The rule book's
Uh-huh.
180 pages.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and the thing is, like when he took me through it on Vassal a couple of years ago, it was such a good game. I even had him demo it for the guys at Army School of Advanced Military Studies, because it has some interesting things. But when the rule book, because I got to see it as they were play testing and downloading all the updates of rule book, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm like, wow. Um, at some point, this game is starting to get a little overbaked, and I didn't play the original one. I wanted to. How am I ever going to learn the game without you showing me how to play? And you know, you mentioned OST. You got the new one, right? With
Uh, I
Sicily,
I
Italy.
I don't. I don't have that one. I
I
got.
couldn't wait for that.
Oh, I I have two of them. I have the original East Front, and I have the West Front one. And I just never got through all of them, so I didn't
Yeah,
want to keep buying them yet. But the Sicily one, I think I might get.
and the Japanese one's great too.
Is it really?
The, yeah, because as he was going on with the series, they kept getting better. And you mentioned Shane. He's working on some interesting stuff too. Because
Yeah, Shane.
I'm going to get him on someday.
Yeah.
Um, but it's easy to play, and yeah, I could set it up in less than 20 minutes, and I could knock it out. And the rules are really intuitive. You
Yep.
move, you fire. It's uh, even a lot of people complain about Walker's 65 and 85 series,
Hmm.
and I find it a very intuitive game to play. Um, there's no dice, and people hate that. And I play tested a scenario in 95 with the creator, with the designer.
Uh-huh.
And once again, it's that same flavor. I can pick it up, it's intuitive. It's a squad based game. It is a little different. But, there's some games I look at the rules and I'm like, wow, um, I don't know if I'm going to get this to my table. And I try to get as many games to the table as possible.
Hmm.
But it's that barrier to entry with games that because I want to play them for fun. And one thing about Point Blank, it looks like it's intuitive and you know filling a niche in our community where it's different, it's challenging. And I will play it, I promise you, sometime. And
Well, it is on Vassal, so
yeah, we're gonna have to play.
yeah. Well, I'm up for it. So anytime
Yeah,
you some time, we can play over email, and I can. Um,
you live local, so I mean it's
yeah, it's true. I do.
yeah. Um, and then I'll invite you down to Quantico
Yeah.
sometime. You got to bring Ryan and the whole gang, so we'll have to pick a day when he's not teaching. And he could call in sick. I think the kids are good. I don't want to tell him that, but it's that fun part. And from speaking to so many designers, they often forget that. And from playing your Nations at War series, Nations at War is fun. I mean, it's not hard to play. It kind of is what it is, and I think it challenges the players in the right way. And
Yep.
it looks like the um, point blank winter victories like that too. I see also that you did a tank on tank, which I've also played
Yeah,
and found that.
I did two scenario packs for that. That's Peter Bogusarian's design,
Yeah,
and I did that not because I mean I like the game. It's a great uh, filler game. In between is it's a great introductory game if you want to teach someone who's new to wargaming and just kind of push some tanks around. Um, but Dave asked me to do a bunch of scenarios and some maps and things like that, so I put that together for him. But Point Blank started off as a game that was not going to be an 90 page rule book, and I started writing it in a narrative style, and it is difficult to dig out rules in paragraphs. So like one of the things I'm doing now is I'm going through the rule book and I'm case ruling all of it so that you can pull rules out fairly easy, and I am reorganizing it so that it's a little easier. And I'll probably put together a walkthrough and that sort of thing, and put all that out for free on source. And that way,
yeah.
when the reprint comes, you'll get a newer manual and with all the case ruling in it. So the new Winter Victory expansion is going to come with a manual that's case ruled, and along with we added some new rules in there. There's some air rules. There's some pre-registered artillery fire rules. There's uh, foxholes that you can build. Um, there's some new terrain, a couple new vehicles, and 12 bulge, um, 12 bulge scenarios um, from December 16th all the way through I think January 5th. So there's a good bit of scenarios in there, and yeah, of course you do need Point Blank to play it, but
You're gonna
um,
reprint that, right?
yes, we intend to reprint it. That's the plan.
Kickstarter or just straight on the website?
Uh, I don't know yet. The the game is uh, uh, it's done. I have a prototype in my hot little hands, so
Oh,
I know it's getting done. I don't know if Dave wants to kickstart it or if he wants to just say, "Hey, here's our inventory," and put it for sale on his website. I don't know exactly how he's going to do it. I know that there's a lot of distributors and stuff that he fills those orders also, so I don't know how many are going to be available not through a distributor or through a game store.
well, I'm buying a copy of each when that is out, so you can
Awesome.
tell them one is definitely getting sold. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean it's I got to play it. Because I looked around, went to the website, yep, can't buy it, and you know,
Yeah.
I have no problems with a lot of used games, but if the guy lost a lot playing the game and that's why he's getting rid of it, then I'm going to lose a lot. It's that karma
Yeah.
that goes along with games.
Yeah.
So, but it looks interesting, and what's another squad-based game in my collection? And
Well, yeah, that's the key word. You're a collector.
yeah, and I'm a
So
completist like most collectors, right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of those.
Yeah.
Um, so when I was explaining the game a little bit, saying that the components are cards, and you do have a 108 card action deck, and it's all icon driven. There's really no wording on the cards. Uh, there's icons on the units, and you use the action cards to power a unit. You can discard cards to perform an action. So, just case in point, if you have a handful of cards and you have units on the board and you can't perform the action that you want, you could discard a card and you could you can execute an action on one of the units on the map board. That unit gets what we call spent, so it's sort of not disorganized necessarily, but it's reorganizing, reloading, that kind of stuff. But you can do something with that card, and you can do a action that is printed on the actual unit card. So if you look at the different units, you'll notice that your airborne troops can do more different things than regular infantry. Infantry can like American infantry can move, fire, assault, lay smoke, and it can conceal. That's like their basic load of actions. Your airborne can do things like they have some bonus in melee. They can do recon actions, things like that. The so the a lot of people get confused when looking at the cards and say, okay, I got to have a card that matches the icon on the unit, and that's not exactly how it works. The cards in your hand can command anything, even if the action's not printed on the card. It's sort of like your company commander giving you an order. You will go recon this area, but if you don't have an action, you can use actions on the actual unit cards by using either discarding, or you can play something called a unit action, which is like a little lightning bolt icon. And it's kind of hard to explain when we're just talking and not looking at anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the other part of the game that is sort of people were trying to wrap their head around. Well, one was the movement rule. So you order someone to move, you put a movement marker down on them. They don't move in that turn. They move in the upkeep phase of your next turn. So it gives your opponent a chance to conduct like a defensive fire or fire at them or something like that. So and then in your upkeep phase, you finalize the move. If you're moving into a sector and there's no terrain in that sector, then you draw a terrain card blindly out of the terrain card deck, and that's the terrain you end up in. You can recon prior to doing any of that movement, and the recon action allows you to draw. I mean, there's a couple of things that it allows you to do. One of the things that you can do is you can draw 2 terrain cards off the terrain deck, and you get to keep one of them, and you can put that in your hand, and you have to discard the other one. And that way you can sort of find terrain that you're going to move into before you move into it. That way you can kind of manage it that way. So there's a lot of decisions you can make, and the terrain is not static. So if you have a piece of terrain that is out in front of you, let's say it's a wooden building and it's blocking line of sight of units behind you, you could play a recon card and as an action, and if no one's occupying that building, you could actually remove that building, and then poof, you can suddenly see the units behind it. A lot of folks are saying, well, that's ridiculous. How can you just not see him and then see him? And in infantry, I'm not trying to micromanage every action that a unit performs. So if you move a squad of guys into an area, they're going to make micro adjustments so they can see better, or they're in a better piece of cover, or they're in a shadow, or something like that. So they're going to kind of maneuver around. They're going to end up in the area that they want to occupy, and then they're going to make adjustments. That's what that's simulating to me. And a sector is not represented like as a hex. A sector is like a group of hexes. And in the group of hexes, there can be all different types of terrain that you can get into, and some of it you may know about, and some of it you may not. So the terrain play the gameplay with terrain is almost as fun as the gameplay with the units. So it's no scenario will ever play the same way because it will always be different terrain and it will always change. And even if you're in a sector where you're in, say, a piece of terrain, let's say you're in clear, um, you can play a what's called an in-sector move action, and then you could actually change the terrain you're in to something different without leaving the sector. So there's a lot of decisions that you can do, and a lot of it's not a game where there's just insta death all over the place. There is, especially if you rolled up a tank and you fired every machine gun on it, and you
Doesn't
can do
work
some.
out so well.
Yeah, it doesn't work out so well when you're, if you're in clear terrain and a Sherman or Mark IV rolls up on you and opens up with all its machine guns and ordnance.
So in
So
some ways, oh, go ahead, sir.
no, that's I was just getting a drink there.
Oh, in some ways, you've modeled in a very slick manner, um, con- fog of war, confusion on the battlefield via your card system.
Yep.
Was that was the overall intent? It seems like.
It was, and it was the terrain was heavily influenced by upfront. So if you've ever played
Mhm.
upfront, when you got guys in moving, you have the FU factor by your opponent dropping a swamp on you or playing a stream on you, and now you're in that terrain. This is similar to that, but I expanded it by I took the terrain's not mixed in with the action deck; it's separate, and the recon action allows you to try to manipulate the terrain. So if you have crappy terrain in front of you, you could use a recon card to remove it, providing no one's in it. You can't remove terrain out from someone who's occupying it. You can search for terrain and you can find better terrain. And in the game, you get a default deck of terrain, and each scenario will have you remove some terrain cards and add others. So if you're playing a game where there's not a lot of buildings in it, the scenario may have you take out, 4 stone buildings and 5 wooden buildings, so there's hardly any buildings in there. And it may tell you to add a hedge or low crops or something like that, because we have all different kinds of terrain types in there. I mean, in the game, there's 800 cards in the game.
Wow.
Yes, it's the game is 9 pounds.
A good 9 pounds.
A good 9 pounds, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot, yeah, that's a lot of card sleeves. If you're into that. So, and yeah, we give you, like 10 of each type of troops. So there's regular infantry, there's second line infantry, there's airborne. This is for the US. On the German side, you have infantry, second line infantry, you have SS, you have Fallschirmjäger. You have weapons teams like mortar teams, machine gun teams, AT gun teams. You have transport vehicles. All kinds of AFVs. So, like for instance, on the German side in the core game, you get Tigers, Panthers, Mark Mark threes, Mark fours. In the Americans, you have some Fireflies, Shermans, some the open top. Can't remember the
Tank
nomenclature.
destroyers.
Yeah, tank destroyers. The M10s. I think there's an M36 in there. There's a good variety. A couple of armored cars. I think there's like a M20 in there. And we in the expansion we had there's a King Tiger 2 in there. You're gonna put out a bulge game and not put that tank in there.
You have to.
Yeah, there's a
It's law.
Pumas. Yeah, exactly. And there's a Puma in there. There's um the M Sherman with the 76 gun in there. And I think we have, because we put air power cards in there. We um, have a German anti-aircraft. I think it's a SDKF 10/4.
Oh, the
Yeah,
mobile one.
yeah. So the air rules are pretty slick in there because it's sortie based. So you don't know what sortie you're going to necessarily get. You dial it up sort of in the beginning of the game. You don't have to tell your opponent. And you need there's radio cards that come with the base game. You need to use those to establish contact and um, execute um, an air sortie. The artillery, the PRAF, I mean the pre-registered artillery fire. Those are pre-registered. You pick your sectors in the beginning of the game, what you're going to target, and you can just use. You don't need a radio. You just can execute a fire, and they'll just fire at that sector, and you resolve it, and you get limited numbers of fire missions for that. So there's all kinds of different rules, and as we go, we're starting to sophisticate additional pieces to the game to add that level of squad leader ish stuff
A
into
little
it.
crunch.
A little crunch if you want to. There's no rule that's difficult in the game. They all feed off each other. So um, if you want to say call in an artillery fire, you got to play a fire card to do that, and then you go and you dial in your radio to you draw a card to well, all the die results are card based. So there's there's die pips on
Hmm.
each card. So you use the cards to uh, determine the die results. So in the case of the radio, you need a certain result, and depending what the result is, you either get a little bit of fire or you get a lot of fire. If you roll really well, you get more fire than if you rolled lower. And the
So
game is go
yeah,
ahead. Oh, I just
no,
wanted to
as
say,
yeah,
yeah, the game is the turns are the decks. So this is something that was an homage to up front. So
up front. Yeah.
yeah, when you let's say a game, maybe a 3-turn game. So that's like three times during the deck. So if you roll through the deck 3 times, in a 3-turn game, you would be over with.
So you've seen people play this game.
Oh, yeah,
You can't include friends. They're always going to say something nice or something horribly mean.
yeah.
Um, but as you see people play it or reach out to you after they play it, what is something that they've told you about your own game that really surprised the hell out of you?
Oh, well,
Hopefully, it was good.
yeah, no, no. You know, you receive all kinds of feedback.
Oh yeah,
Um, I've received, some feedback that was not very nice, but that was very rare, and usually in the form of a forum post or something like that. And no one's really said anything mean to me directly to my face.
it would be
Um,
horrible.
yeah, well, I mean, I'd say I appreciate your honesty. Um, but the thing about what I think people really enjoy playing the game a lot, and I think that what's contributed to their enjoyment is the support they get. So I'm on Board Game Geek a lot, and if I see a notification, someone has a question, I'll try to answer it as soon as I see it. I'm
That is
not
so
waiting.
important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people appreciate that level of support, and a lot of the questions are easy things to answer. So I think it's important that if you're gonna invest $85, and that's a Kickstarter price plus $20 in shipping. If you're gonna invest like $110 of your money in a game, that you made, that you put out there, and they have a question on it, I think if you can respond right away and help them, I think they appreciate it. And I tried to do that as much as possible. Now, when the game first came out, I was answering questions left and right. It was people. It was a new to everybody,
No,
and not and just simple things. How do I do this? I don't understand that, and I would answer it. So once they get going, then they start answering everybody else's questions. And I can look at it and say, like, "Oh, I don't even have to answer this because the guy answered it for this guy." And I'll just give a thumbs up, let them know that I saw it and whatever.
Crazy how it works that way, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
when Sebastian was Bay was putting out his Littoral Commander, I told him, I go, look how you created this game and for why you created it. You put a lot of things in there that wargamers may not understand. If somebody posts in there, respond within 72 hours, be nice, and if somebody's trolling you, give me a call. I'll troll them
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
But no, that's key because like Herman Lutman does that, and
Mhm.
I think Ryan does that too. I think that is so important to get in there and like, hey, because I know for you designers, it's a labor of love. It's almost like an extra child, and but the bottom line is, I think the folks that go and help the community play their game really love gaming and want people to enjoy the game. I would say probably just as much as they love creating it. And sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well,
And
the other thing
then you
too,
get those go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So yeah. So the other thing is like not that ratings are all important, but everybody likes getting a rating, especially a good rating. But when someone gives and I don't have what I would consider a lot of bad ratings at all. Some folks have just given it, you know, a 2 or 3, a 3 or 4 or something like that, and I'm usually I don't say, do anything, but if someone took the time to give it a negative rating and then they, post a comment in there, I'll say, I may email that person and say, look, I appreciate your feedback. Thank you for your honesty, and I'll address their concerns with it or whatever. And offer to help them play over Vassal or whatever. And if you, decide to give the game another chance, I would, like that opportunity to help make your game experience better. Not everybody consumes rules the same way. Some people are just, you know, I have to read a rule book over and over and over again until I kind of get it, or because everybody writes differently, and these rule books that I'm writing for this game, they're 85, 90 pages,
Yeah.
and they're narrative based. So at that, so I'm like, yeah, I should have gone case rule to begin with, but I didn't expect the game to be so big in size. So, and of course, the other thing too is when I was writing the rule book, um, someone would come up with an idea. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to put that in. So then you kind of put it into the game module, the game rules, and you sort of lose continuity as you're writing it. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because you've
yeah.
put a new idea in there, and it may feel like if you're reading through the rule book, like, oh, this seems sort of out of place for this particular rule. So, and that's because it took a while to develop the game over time, taking other people's ideas and try to make the game better. So
Rule
that's
writing is hard. And
oh yeah.
I explain to people like it's almost like an art. And there's some amazing rule writers out there. Um, some not so much. Um, and they don't even proofread their own rules. But like when I get rules to proofread, and I'm doing one now for a miniatures game, and going through the rules, like board games, if it happens in the game, you have to have a rule for it.
Yep.
There's no player interpretation. Miniatures game, there is player interpretation. So that means your rules have to include any situation that the players can get themselves in. And when it comes to narrative rules, I like I said, I love reading rule books. You can look at the RPGs, how they explain their game, and most people that pick up an RPG set of rules kind of know that they know what the deal is. It's all in somebody's head.
Hmm.
Go. And I think that is something like trying to teach people really good rules writing. It's not easy, and nobody gets it perfect. Um, there are some that it just the way they explain the rules in that narrative format, and the other one is the games that throw in all the fluff. I know the history of World War II. I don't need to reread it.
Right.
And then it's not easy to do, and as you run your game over and over again, it's like there was a set of rules that I got from a guy in Holland. Peter, love your games, you know that, but I
Hmm.
could. He said he was working on it for years, and I'll go. I look at the marks I put in here. I could tell where you stopped and started again
Hmm.
because you
Interesting.
you went out and play tested for another couple of months, and you added all this stuff, not realizing that's already in your rules. And he's a good rules writer, but it's hard to do, and everybody thinks, well, that's the easy part. Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
not.
not. No, it's not in any way. And again, it gets back to that challenge that I think is important is to can someone learn the game by reading the rules on their own without having to solicit help? And sometimes you may not throwing a play-by-play tutorial would help with that and help people get through a lot of rules, especially in a game like the squad leader there's binders of rules in there. You don't need to learn every rule. And the same
Nope.
in this game. There's a lot of things, but you can find it. I mean, you don't have radios in your scenario, then you don't need to learn a radio. you know,
Yeah.
uh, Same with anti-tank guns, or if you're not transporting troops in your trucks or whatever, you don't need to read about that necessarily. And so it is a challenge. A lot of people, some of the, a lot of heartburn with folks have been trying to get through the rule book. Well, it's a 95-page rule book that's narrative based. So I recognize that it needs to be case ruled, needs to be decomposed a little bit, and that's what we're working on. I'm kind of experimenting with AI to try to use that to kind of glean out the repeated rule sections. So sometimes you may write a rule, and that rule may live in another part of your rule book,
Yeah.
and you want to make sure. Oh, the other thing too is referencing rule sections and things like that. So that's always difficult to get those correct. It's
Yeah.
in with lock and load. I mean, you're writing the rules, you're doing your original editing. There's other people who will read through it for you or whatever, but I don't know what their methodology is. And there's some good rule writers out there. I mean, good editors out there like Dave Schulz or Shaw for Ryan's friend.
Yeah, Dave Shaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he works for the Baltimore Sun, or he worked for the Baltimore Sun. So I would imagine that this is pretty elementary for him. But
You mentioned Combat Commander,
yeah,
and I got to be look. Got actually when I was in Rhode Island, I got to meet um, Kai Jensen,
Kai, yeah,
and
I saw,
yeah,
I saw her out in. I went to Consim World this year. I
oh
usually go
yeah,
to WBC, so I went to Consim World. She was out there, and she was helping run that convention.
and I love that game,
I do
and
too.
a lot of people don't because of the. I don't like cards. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I'm like, yeah, because real life's like that. It's not, and
Hmm.
but that rule book is it gives you the basics to play, but to you have to teach yourself that game by playing the cards almost solo. And I had the game for like a year, and I went to the local little combat commander event that we have here. I just went back
Right.
this past year. It's so much fun, and
Yeah.
I was honest with Steve. I'm actually here to learn the game because the rules give you an order of how things happen in the game, but most of the time I'm reading the rules upstairs as I'm, get ready for bed. The cards are
Yeah,
downstairs. Without the cards in front of you, you lose that context.
yeah.
And
You lose the feel also what when you have five of them in your hand or four of them in your hand, if you're the Russians or whatever, and you're trying to figure out what to play in and how to sort of maybe in a turn do one thing with one uh, group of units and then maybe another thing with another card with another group of units depending on how many
yeah,
orders you have.
and it's this. It is a fun game. I played Pacific Scenario against this guy.
Hmm.
It was a nail biter to the end, and people knock it. Doesn't have tanks. Don't like cards. Um, you play these things for fun. You don't need it, and it's that. It's it's a great game that has done very well, but has so many people that probably never played it saying horrible things about it. To me, it's genius design, and even like the nuances of the Great War stuff. Because you want me to buy a game, make a Great War game, just how it is. I'm a junkie for that period.
Yeah,
Um,
the Great War series is phenomenal.
yeah,
If you
it
like comics,
is.
it's great. Great War
I
Commander, it's great.
Yeah, and they're coming out with the Eastern Front.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not saying when, no.
yeah. I bought
So
the British expansion.
expansion,
Yeah,
such a good game
yeah.
that
It's
I more people should play. But it's like Combat Commander doesn't work for me. It doesn't. And it's funny. Everybody's like, "Well, it doesn't have tanks." Great War Commander has tanks.
Yeah, it does. I
They
thought the
suck.
Mediterranean. Yeah. Uh, well, the
It-
Germans. How many of those German tanks did they make? Like 11,
18.
18 of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you know, how often
I
did you see them in battle in the 4 years that war lasted?
not too many. There was only one tank on tank encounter,
Yeah.
but they're in the game. They break like they should, and the game is great. A lot of people that go from one to another don't realize in the World War II version, they're squads. In the Great War version, they're platoons. The
Hmm.
game just works. It's a fun game. And that's,
Yeah.
one thing when I see your, your victory games that the it's pushing the boundaries of what a game should be, regardless of whether or not, there's pushback as you design it. And I think taking that risk, to me, people out there don't know what they don't know,
Hmm.
and they'll try the game. And that's the other problem our community has, is that they'll beat up a game they don't own and they know they'll never get within 10 feet of, but they'll post bad stuff about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I don't. I don't know why people feel the drive to do that unless it's informative. If it's a response to someone, hey, what do you think of this game? And
Yeah.
player opinion, but someone or that's someone's love. They originated in their head.
Yeah.
They probably worked on it, probably sacrificed, some of their other personal time to go and try to bring it to the table, and it made them happy, and I don't think I would never go out of my way to go and say something bad about someone's game just because I wanted to be a
Un-
troll.
Unless it's Ryan.
Hey, Ryan. Yeah.
Hey, his canvas map came today, and that Whirlpool game. I don't know if
Oh
you've
yeah, yeah.
played that.
I bought it, but I didn't buy. I you get the 2-inch box. I think if you buy the uh,
My Mine
the
came today. Look, I'm a sucker too for the neoprene maps. I don't know why, and it's we're actually at work going to buy a massive 72-foot roll of canvas to print
Mhm.
our maps on, just because I love it. I don't know why. I got problems. But you know, that game, it's like, and I always, especially if I know the guys that do the game, I read the comments they get, and I'm like, huh, you couldn't have had this game more than 24 hours.
I
And
got I got my copy, I think less than a week ago.
right, yeah, mine came last week, and it's like you've played it enough to make some of these comments. I don't get that, but yeah, it's it, you can't make everybody happy, and games should be fun. Play what you like. One of the best things I love on Reddit, that's where all the intellectuals hang out, by the way. I don't know if
Yeah.
you knew that.
Yeah.
And
No,
yeah,
I'll
it's
check it out.
yeah, I feel so much better about myself afterwards. And I hate these posts, and I'll always put in, oh boy, hey, could somebody recommend for me a game or a couple of games? Like the other day was Civil War games, right?
Right.
And I actually put in like, oh God, here we go. Somebody will say this game. No, that game sucks. And they'll get into fights, and it's almost like, what's your favorite band? Well, that band sucks. It
Oh,
it's
jeez.
as stupid as that. And I- you know, I find it I don't know. It's interesting. I'm so addicted to this hobby, like yourself, but there's just some things I just don't get. And I've had people tell me up and down, yeah, that game sucks. All right. Well, I mean, what response do you want out of me? You suck. I'm not like that, but it's you don't like it, don't play it. But never bag on somebody else's fun. And unless of course it's Ryan's game, and
Yeah,
got to give him a
Ryan,
hard
yeah,
time.
it's a you have to. I mean, if you have to come up with something creative too, or else, they'll start bagging on your games.
But I'll never tell him that.
Yeah. No,
You know,
yeah, Ryan's great.
he is.
Um, yeah, I like games that are fun from a game perspective, and I'm not really into simulation stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and so in other words, if this wasn't simulated exactly, um, I would, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it or anything like that. And as long as the game's fun, and things like if you take Combat Commander, the game's fun, and is there some gaminess on it? Yeah, but there's gaminess in Point Blank too, and like if you're trying to run the deck out because you're trying to get to the end of the game. Um, One though I did fix one. Well, I don't want to say I fixed anything, but there is one gaminess piece that I accounted for in Point Blank. There was nothing I hate more when you have a victory hex or a victory location and someone sends their last dying guy up into it to capture it and they win the game, with the guy's about to bleed out. So in Point Blank, you have most of the objective locations have flags on them, white flags and black flags. The white flags represent, infantry based weapons, and the black flags represent ordnance. So if you are going to capture the bridge objective, and I have there's a couple different bridges in there, but one of the bridges, there's two white um, infantry type flags, and there's one black ordnance flag. You can occupy that bridge with units, but if you don't have enough units to satisfy the flag conditions, you can't control it. So if you have, say, a tank and two infantry in there, you can control the bridge. The airborne have two flags on them. So if you have airborne and if you have a bazooka, so the bazooka has a ordnance flag on it, a black ordnance flag. If you have, say, the airborne and a bazooka, the airborne with that bazooka can control that bridge, as well as two squads and a tank. So um, that was a cheese factor. I wouldn't call it gaminess. I'd just call it a cheese factor. So that. I just wanted to point that out and point blank. So if you see those flags on the objective cards, that's what they're for.
Now they know.
Yeah.
Now they know. We're coming up on 90 minutes, so we got to ask some standard questions before.
Sure.
Yeah, because I got to go upstairs. I have a cursing Philadelphian up there,
You have a
and they're
what?
playing cursing Philadelphian. My wife
Oh,
from
okay.
Philly.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Oh,
they're playing tonight, so
that's
I'm
right in
safe
Virginia.
down here. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the game's on, but I haven't really been paying attention to it. Let's say one was to break into your house, and I'm not going to do it. My felony days are way over. Tell me a game on your shelf that would shock me that you play and love.
Well, I don't know. Well, I have War of the Ring, the Ares game.
Yeah.
Uh, I love that. I have um, shock you. Corrupt Bargain by Decision Games. It's a politics
Hmm.
game where you're it's like I think the presidential election of 1816 or something like that. I
Oh,
have
I think I played that one. It's by
yeah.
GMT, right? No,
No,
Decision.
it's by Decision.
Decision.
I got another Decision game, Bleeding Kansas. Great research in that game. That's a fun game also. Not a area control game, but um, um, fun nonetheless. I have let's see, games that would shock you.
I was waiting for Shoots and Ladders.
Oh no, I Lava on Your Table.
That's a
Uh,
great game, though.
everything's lava. I think it's called Lava on Your Table or Everything's Lava, something like
I
that.
think that's actually a pretty fun game.
Yeah. One of my favorites is Sasquatches and Flapjacks.
Never heard of it. I gotta look it up.
Yeah, not a person who would go out in the woods and hunt down Bigfoots or Sasquatches, but I'm a fan. So
It looks interesting. I may check it out. Like the
you
other
gotta
day,
cut
I had
down
somebody
trees.
over. What was
What's
that?
that? I said you got to go cut down trees and you got to deal with Sasquatches and things like that. It's
And
pretty
then of
fun.
course flapjacks, which
Yes,
where
they
I'm
get
from, pancakes, but yeah, I get it.
yeah they give your lumberjacks your tree cutters energy. So
Do you have to sing a song at all?
and you can I guess I don't
Like
know. It
I'm
makes
a lumberjack and I'm okay.
okay. Yeah. Well, that has connotations on it that may be misleading to some of the
Yeah, it is. It's a little
members of the
crazy.
audience, probably.
I mean, showing our age, of course, but
Yeah, exactly.
somebody recently came over and they saw Here I Slay or Here to Slay.
Here to slay.
Yeah. And they were like, this is a kid's game, right? I go, no, I mean, kids can play it. And they go, what possibly could be fun about this? And I said, it's a fast paced game that you continuously have to track your own stats and abilities. And
Hmm.
this happens in any time I tell people to go play it. So you play it with a ton of people, and then like they've gone, and then now that you're two players past them, and they're like, "Shit, I forgot to play this,"
Hmm.
and it gets you to kind of it's about situational awareness. I find that game kind of it's interesting to play, and I will purposely play it with diehard grognards, and they get so pissed off because it's a kids game. I don't know why I can't play it well. Well, I don't know. Maybe because you're not a kid. Who knows? But yeah, people always find that one very surprising on my shelf, and they're like, "Really?" I go, "It's small. I take it with me everywhere, man. It's a great game." And
Well,
yeah,
well,
and they go, "It's okay." What?
one game that I think you'd find I have the Polar Express. I call it Polar Express Race to Santa's Kingdom. I don't think that's the name of it though. But that is it's designed for kids. I think it should be illegal to sell that game to kids. It is the most cutthroat, mean that just drives you to do horrible things to your opponents in the game. And I don't know that. I think if you put four kids together and that there'd be a fist fight in it. It is the most cutthroat game ever. But we play it every Christmas. Uh,
with your
at the
kids.
no, with a gaming group with a bunch of other Grognard guys, and it is it's a sweet game in general, but I mean, you just there's there's so many fu factors in that game. It's just not even funny. But I highly recommend playing that, in when it gets colder.
All right, I'm gonna have to check this out. Thank you for
Yeah.
helping me with a couple $100 tonight. Um, it's there's so many great games out there. Maybe we live long enough to play them all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
got that from a fortune cookie. Yes.
yeah, I like collecting games, and I like, it's like, uh, I get comments, well, you don't play all these games. I'm like, yeah, I don't. I don't need to. I enjoy reading the rules. I like reading the mechanics, and I like setting it up, and just kind of torquing around with it for a while.
I
But
have plenty of games like that.
yeah,
And
exactly.
people will say, "Well, this is unpunched," and I will always say, "I will probably die with it still being unpunched." And then why do you buy them? I just in case, you know, who am I justifying this to? So it's almost like, and then there's some games. It's okay. It's the topic I love. Bam, got it. And will I play it? Yeah, I'm gonna make an attempt to play. I make an attempt to play every game. There's some I knew when I got the repop of Frank Chadwick's Third World War games.
Hmm.
I gotta be honest here. Sorry, Frank. I knew I was never gonna play it. I got it just kind of to be somewhat of a completist, and because as a kid I wanted all those games, and I was never able to do it. But I most certainly will try to get that. You know, No, I'm gonna die with it being unpunched. Sorry. I do wanna lie to the audience. Once again, it's and
You
there's
know,
a
when
guy I work with that talks about it all the time, and I asked him, I go, "You do play other games?" And there was that pregnant pause, and I go, "I don't wanna hear the answer."
well, at
But
least your heirs will inherit an unpunched copy of it, and then be able to maybe make some money on
yeah, let's hope, because I know my son's selling them because the
it.
games he plays, trust me, the apple is very far from the tree, but we got to have you on again.
Yeah,
Maybe closer to when the next release comes out,
sure.
and
I'll let you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, without a doubt, and I'm going to apologize. Nobody knows this about last week because I forgot it was the long weekend, and then I got in like so much trouble because I had to get up the next day and do demos at the Nova Open for Warlord,
Got
and
you. Yep.
yeah, so like right now, if it wasn't for the Philly game on being right now, trust me,
Mhm.
I would be doing something else. But I'm glad we got to talk. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, way too long. So the game we're going to push tonight is Flapjacks and Sasquatches. No, I'm only
Yeah,
kidding.
there you go. Yep.
Um, g- of course, excuse me. I'm gonna have to have Sean's name because it's spelled not how it sounds. But check out Nations of War, so his designs, and I will make sure that we put on the Facebook page when Point Blank V is for Victory comes out again with the reprint along with Winter Victory. Um, because you know what got me today to buy it. Well, one is I wanted to before, but a 9-pound game. How do I say no to that?
You can't. It is. I had a funny. I knew it was 9 pounds. A funny, quick story. I was
Yeah,
coming back from Consim World. I had brought that game with me. I had bought a bunch of VUCA games at the convention. Packed
which
them
one
in
did
my
you get?
suitcase.
Red Strike, right?
No, I got Across the Bug, Crossing the Line. and Traces of Hubris. So it's like it's based off it's the same designer did the one game. What is the name of that game? By MMP, something Victory. It's a great game. Anyway, so I put my suitcase on the weight, and they say, oh, it's 8 pounds over. It'll cost you $100 if you want to, as is. I said, wait a minute. I said, I know just the game to take out of it because it was 9 pounds. I took out point blank, threw it in my backpack, and put it back on there, and it made the weight, so I could fly without paying the extra fee. So it is a 9 pound game. Every bit of 9 pounds.
So we have to think of a name for like a 9 pound weight measure and call it the Druelinger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
like I probably weigh 20 Druelingers or something like that. I'm going to use it later on, and I'll get to see who listens to this, and maybe somebody will say, hey, I weigh whatever, or because like when the British go, I weigh 10 stone. Look, dude, we
Yeah.
all know what that means. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, but definitely gonna have you back, and once we pop off, I'll tell you about some other interesting things. But once again, thank you so much for coming on, and
Yeah, my pleasure.
thank
Thank
Ryan
you.
for putting us together.
Yeah, Ryan's a great
Yeah.
guy. He's great ad for the gaming community.
He really is, and somewhat talented. I mean, it was. I don't know if you heard the podcast I did with him, and I introduced Herman. I'm like, hey, didn't that game, Most Fearful Sacrifice, win an award? Yeah, I wanted Charlie. And that's Herman. And then, he goes, I want one for a postcard game. I don't think, does that count? And I'm like, nah, that doesn't count. It's a postcard game, man. Come on, you can mail it, but
You wanted Charlie for it, so that's
he did.
yeah.
He did. Yeah, of course I'm going to count it. But yeah, it's just he's a good guy, but without a doubt, so much fun, and Philadelphia is winning, so I think I can go upstairs safely in a couple.
All right.
And
All right. Good to know.
Sean, thank you, and we'll turn it back to Sean in the studio.
All right.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.